everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Andrew Townsend. I'm an e-learning evangelist here at eLearning Brothers. Today, we're going to be talking about an improviser's view on custom e-learning. This webinar will be recorded. We'll get a copy of it sent out to everyone after the fact. We'll also post this on our website in a few days. If you have questions during this webinar, if you'd like to participate, give information, we're going to be doing some improv games that you can participate in. Please use the questions panel. We'll be getting information from the questions panel for that. And we'll also be happy to take actual questions through that questions panel if you'd like to use it for that. To talk to us about improv and custom e-learning, we have Ivan Bigney, one of our custom solutions consultants with us today. Thanks, Ivan, for joining us. Also, something, just so you know, one of the things we like to do after the webinar is try to follow up as soon as possible. Sometimes it's just to get feedback. Most of the time, we would like to touch base and find out if anyone needs some one-on-one clarification on the webinar topic after the fact. All right, without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to you, Ivan.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. As he mentioned, I am an improviser, which means that I will not be following any of the PowerPoint slides I show you. I'll be kind of going off on my own tangent. Maybe. But my history, actually, this is really exciting for me because typically I don't get to be myself here at work. They tell me to just go sit in the corner and do my job, but finally I get to let my true colors fly, and I get to share a little bit about an improviser's view on e-learning. Now, I should give the caveat that I am not I'm not an e-learning developer. I'm not a designer. I'm one of the custom solutions consultants. So I don't make e-learning, but I do get to consume a lot of it. And as an improviser, as somebody who's used to saying yes and a lot on stage in a comedy setting, I get to see the e-learning that makes me say yes and the e-learning that makes me say no. So part of what I want to talk about is just as a consumer, what portions make me say yes, and some of the ways that we've approached it on the custom side. A little bit later, I'm going to invite one of my scene mates, Drew, to join us to put on a couple hopefully entertaining improv scenes. It's kind of weird performing improv in a vacuum. Usually I have thousands of screaming, adoring fans and lots of people just on their feet clapping. So this is very different for me. So first of all, one of our mottos on the custom side, if I can share my screen here, Andrew.
Sure, I'll pass it over.
Thank you very much. One of the mottos that we have as we're deciding whether we're good partners for custom e-learning is to start anywhere and go everywhere. So we'll kind of start where you are in your e-learning journey. Do you have some old e-learning? Do you have some Flash that needs conversion? Do you have some ideas for e-learning that need to be formulated? And do you need help with ID? Or do you have it fully formulated? You just need us to build it. We can even consult if you're building it in-house. We can kind of help go through some of the process. And if you just want to get a consultation, that's somewhat of what I do in my day job. But applying it to e-learning, I actually used to be a trainer, and a lot of companies are ordering improv training for whatever reason, and I might go into some of those reasons a little bit later. Companies love e-learning, or excuse me, improv training as part of their corporate training processes.
So are you sharing your screen yet?
I'm trying. There we go. No.
Oh, there we see it.
No, you don't.
Well, we see choose your avatar.
Oh, you do? Okay. This is what I'm going to be going into later. Give me that share again.
Sure.
What did I do here? Sorry, guys. I am an improv expert. I don't know anything about technical stuff. Oh, here we go. All right. So I'm going to go off script a little bit as I advertised. I didn't plan on actually going off script, but I guess it looks like I'm going to. So let me talk a little bit about improv while I'm doing this. And is there anybody out there, just answer in the questions box, if you have actually seen a live improv show or any type of improv? Whose Line Is It Anyway is a great example. And I can go into a little bit of what happens. Mostly improv comedy that I do with a few scene partners, it's just made up on the spot. So it's kind of weird to adapt that to e-learning, since e-learning is asynchronous and it's set and stagnant, and it is a course that people can take. So applying improv principles to that is a little bit hazy, but I have a few observations as an improviser. The big rule, while there are lots of rules, one of the improv styles that I like to do is I'll get on stage and I do musical improv. I'll make up music on the spot. We'll do kind of a pseudo Beauty and the Beast. We might completely ruin the actual storyline of Beauty and the Beast and recreate it with our own songs and with our own words. And that's one of my favorite things to do is musical improv, just making up things that, that go on stage. Go ahead, Andrew.
We are still not seeing your screen, so I'm going to pass it to you one more time.
All right, this is all Andrew's fault, by the way, that we're having technical issues.
I'll take it, sure.
Okay.
All right, you should have that prompt.
And
by the way, while you're getting that set up, lots of people here are saying that they have seen lots of improv, especially on TV. We have a few people that do improv themselves and enjoy that.
Oh, perfect. All right. So while I'm explaining it, get a feel for where they've done improv and who they are. I want to know who we've got on the line improv-wise. So a lot of the rules that go into improv are very detailed, and you have to know storyline and story structure and make it satisfying for the audience. And a lot of it depends upon what the audience gives you. That is the biggest thing I'll focus on today is how you get the audience engaged, mostly with the process of yes and, which is the fundamental rule of improv. And yes and has been a huge instructing principle in my career, where I have to be okay with things that happen and kind of roll with the punches. That's the biggest thing that this concept of yes and has taught me, is that I have to accept things as they are and add my own piece to it. So how this would work on stage is if I have a scene partner who makes an offer, maybe they decide that they are in a rainstorm and they look up at the sky. I might say, okay, they're looking up at the sky, and I add my own portion to it and tell them it's a plane up there. So once I've added to it, we just yes and go back and forth until a scene comes cohesively. The reason that a lot of people order this type of training when it comes to corporate settings is because there's a lot of no's that go on in corporate settings. You might have employees who don't want to engage. They hear the idea of another corporate training session or e-learning, or you might want their feedback and you might get a group of folded arms, a lot of no's. And in a lot of ways, what makes the company culture, what makes engagement, where you get your best feedback on how to run the company is from the employees. And if you have a bunch of people saying no, then you don't get that valuable feedback, you don't get the engagement, and you lose out on a lot of training. So yes and is really about willingness to engage and willingness to say yes. And also, I have something to add. I think Tina Fey in her book, Bossy Pants, talks about the time when she was studying at Second City, when she finally realized that her input had value on stage amongst these improvisers. So that is what I'm aiming at with yes, is you want to get a yes from your employees. So what's at stake with no's? If you have company change coming up and you have employees that are leading with a no, if you have group settings where you really need projects to take place in a group setting, if you have a lot of employees that are letting others take the lead as opposed to thinking that their input is valuable, you have no's. So if you have an environment where everybody's saying yes, they don't know where this is going to go. Similar to how in an improv scene, the improvisers have no idea where the scene is going to go. Yet they say yes, and they brave the challenge of exploring where that can possibly go. And in a lot of ways, for those of you who have done improv, and for those of you who don't, it's a little bit daunting to fall flat on your face in front of a crowd. And oftentimes that's the funniest part of watching improv. So my friend Drew is coming in a little bit later, but I want to talk a little bit about our approach from the custom e-learning standpoint. Now, I am the Gen Xer who is just told to keep my mouth shut and put my head down and work, and that's kind of the place of us fellow Gen Xers. So I consume a lot of this e-learning and think what actually matters. So what I want to cover today really briefly is, first of all, what is yes and, which I already covered, how does it apply to the learners, and then a couple ways that we aim at getting the yes. My idea in corporate settings is that rather than focus on yes and altogether, let's start with getting your learners to just say yes. When you have a new training take place, you just want them to say yes, and the end will follow. So a couple of ways that we do this is with gamification. For example, if you go and if you tell some of your employees that they need to take a training, it's a little bit daunting because of the history of what training might feel like. Maybe you have a history of PDFs that they have to read, or there's some old outdated e-learning that's painful and takes up time when they've already got managers who are asking them to perform other tasks. But the difference is if you were to say something like, oh, make sure to play your hoops game, make sure to do your avatar challenge, or whatever game it might be. Something simple like having a leaderboard or playing a game that tests their knowledge. They certify through these means. These are well-known, good, engaging ways of creating e-learning. And it's much more satisfying for the learner to know, oh, I got to play my doctor game. I got to play my friend Words with Friends e-learning edition. And we like to take content with that approach. How can we get the learner to say yes? So some of you are familiar with our learning ecosystem. And I know that I'm rambling, Andrew. This is not the setting I'm used to. Is there any questions? Are people just giving me praise and shouting out in the comment section?
There are lots of that.
Awesome.
There's lots of agreements. Lots of people saying, yes, improv is fun. Yes, improv makes us want to learn more, because there's always this continual suspense of you never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And I like that. However, that's not everybody's learning method. Some people don't like to enter the unknown. It's harder to get a yes from somebody who might be so busy that they don't have time for the exploration of things outside their perceived roles. There's a lot of times when people are afraid, say they've been in a group setting and their ideas have been shut down before. That no is a lot to risk, especially when they might have valuable information to offer. So what we want to do is apply the learning ecosystem. Some of you are familiar with this webinar, or excuse me, this infograph. But if you can see my screen, we focus a lot on content. But what we really want to know, especially if we're building your e-learning, is the entire context around it. Are you dovetailing this with some instructor-led? Do you have virtual instructor-led trainings? What type of programs are you offering for mentoring? What type of job aids can we build for you? And of course, this applies if you're building it in-house as well. You really want to know the context surrounding a lot of it. You want to know what other gamification you want to add to it. Do we need to add serious games? What animation resources do you have? And some of this is obvious to those of you who have been in e-learning for a long time. Again, this is me as a consumer, just establishing what I notice is the most engaging way. And when I'm scoping these projects out, I like to know the entire context rather than we have a module, we need to build it. Because the context will dictate a lot of how we design it, what games we add. Is there a serious tone? What type of LMS systems are we working with? Do we need to put some really detailed analytics to it, etc.? So one way, there's a couple of my favorite games that we've created, and just some of the principles in applying an improv setting to an e-learning platform. It allows me to engage. It allows me to say yes. And one of the ways that I've loved in some of the custom e-learning we've built is by choosing your own type of avatar, your own type of setting, your own type of adventure. So one that we did, let me see if I can figure out this tech piece on how to share my screen here. One I want to show you really quickly. We built this a little while ago for H&R Block. And it really has a nice way that really quickly, without doing much. Now, granted, there is a lot of room for graphics and a lot of room for us to play around with this. But even if you don't have the budget for a lot of heavy graphics, or you don't have the time to build things, all you need to think is, let me quickly put in something that allows the learner to say yes. So very quickly, when I see this, I go, who is my character? I've already assumed I am one of these characters. I choose that I want to be involved in this e-learning. So say if I want to be Sarah, just feel what it's like, and then I get to pick my setting. Those two things alone, as I'm filtering through a lot of these e-learning practices, this one always stood out to me because I get to choose, I get to pick. We have another e-learning that involves picking your own vehicle and then picking your snacks. And at first I was thinking, what's the point of these little get to see the snacks. I don't get to interact with them later. But it's a quick way for me to identify with the training and the learning. And as a consumer, that is one of the most simple, satisfying ways that we like to build it, and that I recommend applying the YES principle to e-learning. Other ways that you might apply the YES principle is by getting feedback, showing that the company, that you as the learning professional who's building it, is willing to say yes and as well. I am satisfied in e-learnings where I get to give my feedback. First of all, I might have a pre-assessment about what I'm trying to get out of this learning. Not so much what do I know, but also what am I trying to get out of this e-learning? What do I want to be from this? Is this part of a bigger program where I get development, where I get personal gains? Another way that I really like that we built recently, let's see if that pops up there.
Perfect. Now we're just seeing you and Drew.
Perfect.
Hello.
So to recap, a lot of ways that I like to engage in e-learning, just as somebody who consumes it, is I like to pick my own adventure in a way. I like to become the hero of e-learning. Also, I like badging. I like to know my progress and see where I'm going. And you can do that in creative ways, company culture type way. With an eLearning Brothers type culture, we might be able to be brother number one, big brother, biggest brother, some way that we might badge. That is a recommendation for our upper management if they're listening. So what I want to do, Drew, this is one of my scene mates, Drew. I actually want to do a scene with him just to make you see some improv, force it upon you, and let me explain the game we're going to play. Drew, do you have anything you want to say about yourself? And
No, I also am in the ELB, but Ivan and I have done improv together for a number of years. So
yeah, and sorry, Drew, I'm putting you on the spot. This is not the typical setting. Like I said, we have tons of adoring fans and lots of followers and roadies, and it's just a crazy life we live outside of eLearning Brothers with all the fame. You guys who have done improv, you know, it's very
if you're
high
familiar,
profile.
then you know Utah is where improv happens.
Chicago's in second place.
Chicago, Toronto, LA, not so much.
Not so much, that's right. So I want to play a game. This is a simple one, but I think it lends well to our setting, and I'm going to have to fill in the gaps. This is a game that we call Blind Line. Some of you may have seen it. You are actually going to give us some lines of dialogue. Try to stray away from questions or movie lines, just some random lines of dialogue, and I'm going to have Andrew write those down as you chat them in. So while you're doing that and typing those in, it might be something like, hey, that's my lawnmower. Try to not make it dirty, because I think we have a couple 12-year-old listeners. I don't know.
And also, Andrew won't write it down.
Yeah, and Andrew won't write it down.
I don't know how to spell those words.
Again,
right.
Utah.
That's right. So here's the setting. Let's say we are, what's Drew's occupation? That's another one. Really quick, somebody type in an occupation that is Drew's mainstay. I think we're going to have
Andrew will collect for us.
Yeah, Andrew will collect that.
So we've got a lot. Sailor, physicist, plumber, customer support.
Let's take
window
sailor.
washer,
Okay.
We'll take sailor.
kitten barber.
Kitten barber. Let's do a kitten barber
Okay.
performance review.
Also wrestler and astronaut. Not
All right.
the same, not a wrestler astronaut, but a wrestler, comma, astronaut.
I'm wondering how much of this is like a commentary on what I come across as just as a visual, and how much is just like what
You
want to
look
see.
like a kitten barber.
I
If
kind
I've
of
ever
do
seen
a
one.
little bit.
A banana peeler.
Everybody out there is like, that there is a kitten barber.
If I ever saw one.
A frozen duck thar for flight testing.
All right, that's enough occupations.
Wow.
I'm starting to get
You got a lot
concerned about
of,
our audience. A lot of sick people out there. All right, so
We mean that in the best way.
Kitten barber. I'm your boss. I'm the lead kitten barber. This is a performance review. This is how it's going to work for those of you who haven't seen this game. You are giving us lines of dialogue. There's probably 8 of them. And at any point during this performance review, we have no idea where this is going to go. Hopefully we incorporate some of these things I've been talking about and bragging about when it comes to yes. And we're going to pick up these lines of dialogue and then we're going to say them at any point in the scene. And then in the scene, typically we'd have a stage where we get to move around and pretend that we have a real kitten or something like that. But in this case, we're in a sound booth, so we're constrained. But should we plug our ears maybe and have Andrew read those back so that they can hear them? We'll just sit here la, la, la.
Or step out or something. I don't know.
Yeah, why don't we step out? Andrew, why don't you read the lines of dialogue back? I think we've got enough lines of dialogue, yeah?
I think he's almost there.
I need a few more.
Oh, really?
Please send them in. I need 3 more.
Okay, 3 more lines of dialogue. Keep them coming. And thank you so much for participating in this, folks.
Yeah. This is not a typical webinar. We realize that, and we appreciate you being willing to step out of.
They're behind their screens. They have nothing at stake. It's you and me that are. Thank us.
Thank you for being willing to watch us make idiots out of ourselves. We've done
Thank
it
you
for
very
years,
much.
and we're proud of our work.
Can you still see us on screen, Andrew?
Mm-hmm.
That's a real shame. All right. Okay, because I can't see any of it. Oh, there we are. Okay,
Yep.
Let's step out. I'm going to have Andrew read this back. We are literally going to count to 30, read those lines of dialogue back, and then we will come back in and do the scene.
You have so much faith in my speed reading abilities of my own handwriting. Hey, everybody, you can't see me because the cameras are all faced away from me, but the ones we're going to use are my coffee cup is empty. I love ice cream. Get your hammer. Castor oil is good for hair growth. My hair dryer has broken. Can I have that pineapple, or are you still using it? Your dog bit me, and we need a bigger boat. Yeah, I think that's all of them.
We're good?
Welcome back.
Did you read them all?
I did some of them twice.
Okay,
No, just
good.
kidding. Just all of them.
So if you could fold those up, Andrew, and lay them on the
Set 'em over
table.
here.
And listeners, thank you for participating. Don't tell your managers and such that you're getting paid to watch what we call entertainment.
It's research.
So Andrew and I
learning tool.
are going to start the scene. We have no idea where it's going to go. You guys gave us the suggestion of Kitten Barber, and this is the performance review. At any point, we can pick up these lines of dialogue. We have to incorporate them into the scene and see where they go. So without further ado, this is the Kitten Barber performance review. I think you know why I brought you here, Drew.
I think I do. I mean, I know I'm new here, but I feel like I'm kind of standing out.
Well, it's not exactly what you think. My
So-
coffee cup is empty.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, was that part of what I'm?
We here at Kitten Barbers R Us like to establish that the new guys have to fill coffee before they're ever able to touch a kitten. How can I trust you?
I have to tell you something then. I've been barbering the kittens, and I didn't know about the coffee. And really, if I'm being honest, castor oil is good for hair growth.
No.
I don't know if that's a practice you use here, but on the kittens I've been doing on the side, you know, as I've been barbering out in the streets, the castor oil is great. It
Side
really
kittens?
is.
Did you not read the company policy? We don't do side kittens.
Well, I perused it. I didn't go over it in depth, and because I didn't know about the coffee thing. But I can adjust a little bit. I think it's fair that you adjust a little too, and I'll tell you why. I love ice cream.
It's
right?
very apparent.
I like things that are sweet and fun and a good time, and I think at a kitten barber's place that you should like the same things.
I don't think you're capturing how serious this is.
They're kittens, dude.
Whatever. Listen, Friedrich Kittenbarber III would be rolling in his grave right now if he saw what you just told me. Castor oil, side kittens. We need a bigger boat.
I gotta say, I was thinking maybe we could move off the water because cats can't swim. There's a risk involved inherently. I don't know why we do this on the water.
Once again, I told you, it's right in the manual. Captive audience. They can't go anywhere. We can barber kittens all day, and the clients have to let us do it.
You make a fair point. I hadn't considered that. I did think it was odd, but you make a compelling argument.
Well, I've got to take this to the board.
The kitten board?
The kitten board.
I don't think it has to go there at this point. Look,
okay,
I can adjust.
Okay. As
right?
a new intern guy, you would know best, wouldn't you?
Look, I'm trying to cooperate here. You know, you don't got to bust my chops. Look, I will start getting the coffee. Also, something that I'd like to offer up just from my perspective, get your hammer, all right? Because I am ready to just take that constructive criticism as much as you want. But just give me a shot here, man.
All right, maybe I was a little rash. I don't think it needs to go all the way up the ladder, all the way up the chain. But my hair dryer has broken. You're going to have to take on the hair drying duties as well, not just the coffee.
Like I will dry the hair myself? Are you wanting me to be the hair dryer or get you another hair dryer? Because either way, I am on board.
You are a real company man. That's why we hired you here at Kitten Cuts Plus. Right. We just changed the name.
Right.
That's how we do things. We move on a dime here. Can I have that pineapple, or are you still using it?
I mean, you can have.
That was a test. Hesitation will not be tolerated.
Look, I get it. I see what you're doing, and I was testing you back to see if you were testing me. I don't know if you realize that, but your dog bit me. All right, your bark is as loud as your bite. I get what you're saying, and I'm ready to be all in. Kitten barber extraordinaire.
And scene. All right, so everybody's going crazy and wild. That was amazing. Plenty of yes ending there. We both had no idea where it was going to go, but it was kind of fun.
Yeah,
kind of fun.
That's a bit how it goes. You
just kind of go. So yes, we have no idea the reactions there. Another
reactions are, LOL, this is amazing. I'm crying. Great job.
Thanks,
that was
Mom.
Cute.
That was cute.
That's one of the
what we go
improvisers.
for. Cute.
Very, very good. That was fun. That was awesome. Very good. The silent applause is really
okay. Good. It's a good format for improv. We can decide how well we did afterwards, and the audience doesn't exist. It's perfect. So
the vote is in, by the way, and Drew wins.
Does he? Of course he wins.
I didn't know it was a contest, but I mean, I knew that if it were, I would win.
I should caveat that Drew is one of my mentors in improv. He's been doing this for 40 years. I don't know.
I'm 38 and I've been doing it for 40 years.
That's how good he is.
Yep.
So another thing that I think about when I'm building e-learning and improv, and I want to do another example with you. This is more for entertainment than anything, but we always like to know in the ecosystem is what's the end goal? What performances and what things do you want to see? I actually used to work as a engineer in R&D, and one of my mentors back then said you have to build the bathtub in reverse. In other words, try to keep the water out instead of keep the water in, and that helps you engineer a bathtub. So applying that to e-learning, we like to know where the end goal is, and we like to work backwards from there. In 2 years, when you've implemented this program, what will it look like? What will it be? And start there and work back to where you are now. So just more for fun than anything, I want to do a game, if you're okay with it, called Reverse Interview.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, so this is how this is going to go. What's that?
Nothing. Right. I shouldn't have even.
You shouldn't have read that.
He's improvising over there. Don't let him fool you.
Okay, so the way that this one is going to go is Drew, and thanks again for joining me, is we're going to conduct an interview, but in reverse. I will be the interviewee.
The interviewer.
The interviewer. And Drew will be I will be getting interviewed.
Yeah.
How about that? So we actually need some character. If it's a historical character, a character from the Bible, a character, well, or from any ecclesiastical lit. Ecclesiastical lit. What's a character that I am who will be being featured in this Oprah style
popular culture, what have
interview.
you? Anyone, just throw it out.
And that's for the audience.
Moses, Peter Pan, Homer Simpson, Samson,
I
Fred
want to
Flintstone,
be.
Charlie Chaplin, Roy Cohn, Abe.
Do you have a
Bonnie Raitt.
preference on who you
Charlie
want?
Chaplin, I like.
You want me to be Charlie
Yeah.
Chaplin? I don't know much of Charlie Chaplin's body of work, but I'll do my best.
Well, you're not going to be the real Charlie Chaplin.
Okay,
You're gonna
that's
be your
great.
thing.
All right, so Charlie Chaplin it is. Here's how the game plays out. I will actually give the answer to the question first. So you'll get to hear what I say before you actually hear the question. So it will build a suspense of what instigated that comment, and then Drew has to come up on the spot with the question that made that answer come about. So any questions that clear as mud?
You'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. So we're going to start at the end of the interview. So I guess this is the reverse interview of Charlie Chaplin.
Hey, Charles, I mean, Mr. Chaplin, just thank you so much for being here. We're all just really grateful that you spent this time with us.
Well, that's a tough one. I'd have to say 4 times. 4 times at least.
I just want to be transparent here. I could tell that at times during the interview you were uncomfortable and you almost left. How many times was that? I mean, I apologize for those, but I just want you to be transparent with me as well.
Oh, great. Great question. That was the turning point in my career. It's when I really started to come into my own and I became who I was meant to be.
Now, I don't know if you're going to remember this, but early on, when I first heard about you, I wrote you a fan letter and it meant a lot to me. And I just wanted to know if it meant a lot to you.
I don't think I can answer that without, I don't think I'm allowed to answer that actually.
When you're being silent in your silent movies, what are you saying on the inside?
Whoa, that is way out of line. I would never answer that. You're being a little bit pervasive, I'll say.
You realize that your mustache could be used for evil at some point, don't you?
Oh, well, there was Burt Reynolds, Burt Lancaster, Burt's Bees, and I think that's about it.
If you were to look into the future and think about what may exist in entertainment and chapstick one day, what would you think that would look like?
Oh, it's going to change everything. People don't understand that it's a really difficult topic to discuss, and it's going to be revolutionary, really.
We're brand new at this show. It's our first radio show, but we feel like we might make an impact. What do you think?
That's going to be a hard no. I can't. I absolutely can't do that.
It may be a little unconventional, but I like to start every interview with a hug. What do you say?
And scene. That's about it. So you've seen some improv here. You've seen it in the booth. And applying that to e-learning, just in recap, the biggest thing is to get the yes from your learners. Think of little ways with the resources you have to get the yes. Now, we can always help. I'm more than willing, even if we are the firm that does it for you, to talk about your e-learning, maybe throw out some resources that we have, even in just discussion on how to get a yes. We got a question?
Well, no, I just wanted to say Drew's very busy. I want to say thank you.
Oh, thanks, Drew.
And
Thank you so much.
allow you to get back to where you're headed. Thank you.
He's got a foosball game to go to. So that's pretty much all I have as far as the webinar portion, but I can open it up to questions and answer the best I can. I am open to discuss any assistance I can provide.
Sure.
I got a little derailed with the hug. Everybody here knows that I'm extremely non-touchy.
Everyone wants a hug now.
Oh, good.
Okay, some questions here. Let me remove these so I'm not getting feedback. First of all, how do you sell a serious business on something as silly as gamification? Have you come across helping someone realize that gamification is important or good for their course?
Yeah, a lot of times we do have some partners who work with serious games, some of them in the VR space as well. But when it comes to gamification, I think it's essential that not just in the way that you're clicking or you have a silly, wacky character, but gamification in the sense of applying your culture to it. If you're in a strict banking industry, but you want to do an engaging game, you can do the Cashbox Challenge. It doesn't have to be a wacky, zany thing, but somebody who needs to learn, say it's a bank teller, which is potentially some courses that we've built along those lines of creating a Cashbox type challenge. We're more serious feeling. They taught a skill, but they also had a leaderboard. And I will always lean as a half Gen X, half millennial person to want to consume quote unquote gamification, if that helps answer it.
Excellent. Another question here that we've seen a bunch of samples of some custom courses.
Mm-hmm.
Do we only use a specific tool or do we use any tool? Like, do we favor a tool? What people are wanting to know if we build in Captivate, if we build in Storyline, if we build in Lectora,
Mm-hmm.
what our favorite is, which ones work the best for the stuff that you showed us today?
Oh, that's a great question. So our shop is pretty well known for being an expert in all tools. We're picking up some of the newer tools. We as far as our preference, we've built, depends on what you want. If you want a nice responsive course, there are some great tools out there that we know, as far as Elucidad, or I know that Domino has a great tool for responsive design. Rise is another one if you want some very responsive courses, or there's different elements. If you need a very 508 course, we've used Lectora. There's a lot of tools for a lot of things, and I would say that we're pretty agnostic in our shop what we use. Kind of depends on what your shop needs.
Excellent. And we'll just take one more question here before we wrap up, and it may be a question that can just help them find more answers. Lots
Sure.
of people are developers themselves. They want to incorporate humor, or they want to incorporate some of these practices that you discussed today, but they have a hard time figuring out where that line is, especially in their business. So how do they find that line, or where can they go to learn more about that?
Yeah, as far as the line of what's appropriate or not, I'm assuming.
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah, I'm thinking that is a difficult one. Sometimes we do have a question. For instance, in that robot metamythic course that I showed, we were allowed some humor where if you got a question wrong, you were tackled by a coworker. Just a simple little humorous piece. And I will say that from a humor standpoint, some of the most obvious funny things are just simple. The way that a certain manager reacts, or the way that your reports have to be filled out a certain way. Little teeny, subtle, obvious things are the most funny. And a lot of times when we're writing in humor, we try to overthink it. We try to overthink what's funny. But if you think about Saturday Night Live, even the let's say, for instance, the plane scene where the flight attendants just say bye-bye. It's just a simple little notice, people noticing the reactions of a professional in an industry. And I think it's hilarious. Like, if you want to incorporate humor, you don't have to go all the way to pushing any envelopes. You can get some approval for a little bit of humor. Can we have somebody with a smirk? Can we have somebody tackled in this exercise? Find out what's approved, and you really don't need to get that complicated with humor. Just the simple observations.
Excellent. So,
unlike my answer, that was very complicated.
If you have more questions about these these topics, on this topic, if you want to talk more about improv, I've put some information up on the screen. There's a contact information. You can call in, send an email. Ivan, I didn't put your specific email up there. What's your email address if they want to reach out to you directly?
Yeah, my first initial last name at eLearningBrothers.com. Bigney at eLearningBrothers.com.
So you guys can grab that. Also, come and check us out at ELBX. We're hosting the very first eLearning Brothers conference this year. It's going to be in June, and it's going to be huge. It's going to be awesome. You can come and meet Ivan and others of our team and get tips and ideas, and we've got a bunch of great presenters set up for you. So visit eLearningBrothers.com. We've got it right there on the homepage. You can learn all about it there. Thank you, Ivan, for helping us out today, for giving us this very entertaining and important information. We'll see all of you next time. Thanks.